Let's Talk Ministry with Pastor Dennis Martin, where we talk everything and all things ministry.
Well, hey, everybody, it's Pastor Martin, and tonight is Wednesday, and it's been a minute since we've been on, and so we're here tonight to talk ministry. Let's talk ministry with Pastor Dennis Martin. I'm grateful that you've joined me tonight. Thank you so much for being a part. I see you, Sister Adams. I see you, Sister Hall. I see you, Sister Glass, Evangelist Glass. God bless you. Let's talk tonight. Please share this with someone. Please chime in tonight. Tonight is more or less of something that we're going to do that we'll be just sort of talking about some things tonight. And we'll be basically tonight, I'm going to be talking to you and asking you more than just discussing my feelings and what I think about it. But tonight, we want to talk ministry. And the question on the table tonight, the question tonight is, what is your definition of ministry? What is your definition of ministry? You know, we talk about ministry a lot, and we see a lot of things under the heading of ministry. In the category of ministry, we see a lot of things when we talk about ministry. People say, we're doing ministry, we're doing this, we're doing that. And really, when you think about it, I guess a lot of it could be considered ministry, maybe some not considered ministry. But I guess it all depends on a person's definition of what ministry really is and what they feel it is. And sometimes it goes by what we've been taught, how we were raised, what we brought up, how we were brought up. If you notice in those that if you are if you are dealing with some things, here we go. I'm going to put y'all on here tonight and let them see your comments tonight. Service, all right? A lot of times, if you notice, when we grow up in ministry, it all depends on how we were raised, how we grew up, what we saw in ministry, the type of services that we had. You know, sometimes you see people, they will say, well, they're not really doing ministry, they're not doing church. And maybe they are, but it all depends on the way we were raised and the way we were brought up in the type of ministries we were brought up in. There's some people that were brought up in what we call deliverance ministries, where they did a lot of praying for people, casting the devil out or whatever. And so a lot of people feel if you're not doing that, you're not doing ministry. You have others that were brought up where they were teaching and they were just doing teaching or whatever. And some feel if you are not doing that, you're not doing ministry. Some were brought up where they go out into the streets. They go out into the hedges and the highways and compel men to come, and street witnessing and prison ministry and all those type of things. And so someone says, well, we're doing ministry. And so the question tonight is, what is your definition of ministry? What do you think ministry really is? Because is it possible, and I don't want to ask a lot of questions, but is it possible for us to be doing ministry today and doing ministry in a way that all of us could be doing ministry, but on a different, not so much level or a different scale of doing ministry on a platform that we can be doing ministry, but a different way? Because understanding that everyone, when we reach out to people, when we're ministering to people, there's one thing we may do that may not be effective with someone, and then there's another thing we may do that may win the masses. But just because another group or a person is not doing what we're doing doesn't necessarily mean that they're not doing ministry, because they're not doing it by our blueprint or by the way we think they should do it. It's like when you go to church, some people say if you come to church and you're not, people are quick to say people are not preaching holiness anymore. Well, again, if someone is preaching and people are being saved and then being delivered, when we say they're not preaching holiness, if they're getting saved, I mean that could be a thin line there. And so the question is, when we think about it, is what is our definition of ministry? What do we call? Someone says ministry to them is service. He that is great among you, let him be the servant of them all. Your service. And so ministry, when we talk about ministry and finding out the definition of ministry, and the reason I asked about the definition of ministry is because a lot of times when we talk ministry, we have locked ministry into the four walls. Ministry is locked into the four walls. We don't talk about going out. We just sort of deal with it in the four wall setting. And so we think about it. Right. And as you're reading that, Evangelist Glass, you're right. Every joint supplies the other, and we really need that. And when we think of the body and the body, how God has styled and made the body, one can't say I don't need the other. It's like our natural body. We can't say, no matter how we may like different parts of our body, we may exercise to build them up, you'll find that one does not operate good without the other. Everything operates in sync. And so when we start thinking about ministry, I think sometimes we have to operate and think about it in sync. What do you mean? If, I've got my eyes are good, but if my eyes are not functioning, then I've got to get something else to help supply what I'm doing. What do you mean? I got to get a cane or a walking cane or a seeing eye dog to help me to see. And my feet and my walking and my even eating and everything, it's tied in to my eyes. Then not only my eyes, but my eyes are tied into my ears. What I see and what I hear. And then the sound that comes from my mouth. And then those things that happen, we have to understand that when we start trying to dissect and trying to what I call kill each other in ministry and downplay the other because they're not doing the same type of ministry we think we're doing, or they're not doing what we're doing and we don't think that they are as effective as we are, then we need to start really getting the definition of ministry that works together. In Scripture, he tells us we must do these things together. We can't do them apart. We can't do them separately. We do them together. The body is jointly fitted together. We work together. He even when he deals with the fivefold ministry, he puts all those in, not for one to be the dominant ministry. And that's where we've got to deal. Again, that's why we ask what is the definition of ministry, because in our church and in our church world, there are those that feel if I have the one ministry, if I'm the pastor, I'm the dominant one. Someone else says, well, no, I'm the apostle, I'm the master builder. So I've got the most recognized ministry. And then the other comes in and says, well, no, I'm the evangelist. I've got the most recognized ministry. Then the other one comes in and says, I'm the teacher. I've got the most recognized ministry. And then, the one says, I'm the apostle, the prophet, the evangelist, the teacher, and the pastor. And so we start feeling that because I've got this gift and I'm the prophet, that you can't do without me. Well, the truth of the matter is none of us can do without each other. Every one of us working together is for the edifying of the body of Christ. Every one of us working together is to help those and to help the body of Christ come into a place of perfection, come into a place that they need to be. And so what we need to do probably is to define the definition of ministry to us, and then the area that he has assigned us and called us to, operate in that without downplaying or fighting someone else that is in ministry. Don't downplay that part and act like that's not important. So, what is your definition of ministry? Because it's such a broad scale, and sometimes we define ministries by our culture. We define it by our culture. We everything is not defined just by think about it. We define it by our gender. We define it by a lot of things. Everything is not defined by just what we think in the Bible. If you go to different other places, what they do and what they call ministry, we may think it's totally different. And we may think that's not something. I was talking with someone the other day, and they were sharing with us when they went to a foreign country, and they went to a church there. And when they got to that particular church, no one clapped their hands. And when no one clapped their hands, they was wondering why no one's clapping their hands. And so when they went, they would say, everybody, put your hands together and give God a hand of praise. And no one clapped. And they were trying to figure out what it was, and they found out later that they did not believe in hand clapping. And so here we go again. It all depends on where we are, what part of the country we're in, what part of the world we in, where we are, that we make a determination or a definition for ministry. So tonight, let's look at what some of the things that we think a ministry. See Evangelist Glass, to further the work and the purpose of Jesus Christ. That important part to those that believe, and that is something that we need to do, and to have that diversity. We need to be able to understand that you can't. Everything doesn't work the same way in every place. I remember when I traveled years ago. I remember the very first time that I ministered, and I ministered many, many times on the Indian reservations in Arizona, New Mexico, and those places, even in Canada. And they had somebody ask me, when you coming back to Arizona to minister to us on the reservation? Well, I remember the first time I went to the reservation and ministered under the tent we were in Shiprock, New Mexico. And we also went to Gallup, but in Shiprock, I never forget, in our things, we were used to doing things a certain way and calling it ministry. When we got there under that tent for a whole month with nothing but Indians and maybe one or two Caucasians sprinkled through and no blacks at all. When I say no blacks, I'm not just talking. I'm saying there were no, besides us that were there running the meeting, everybody there were Indians. Everyone that was there were, Caucasian, and there were very few, maybe about 10, but the rest were Indians, and this tent seated maybe about 300 or 400 people. And so when I got up to minister, I'm used to doing things a certain way. But when I got up to minister, what I found out is while I'm ministering, I had to have an interpreter. His name was Jerry, and Jerry was, I say one thing and he say something. I say 2 words, it looked like he said 10 words. And I'm looking at him because I'm trying my best to keep in that flow and do whatever. And this is what we're talking about, being diverse and having diversity, being able to sort of fit in, and no ministry is a difference from where we are. So what happened was I'm just ministering and preaching and going through. And so eventually I wave him off. And now I don't know if everyone understands everything I'm saying, because everyone did not understand our language. So I had to have him to bring that forth. And when I would say something, I was thinking he was maybe getting happy and saying more than I was saying, but I didn't know. But my point was, and my point is that in order for us to be able to fit and to do ministry and think about the definition of ministry, it all depends sometimes on where you're ministering at. I ministered at a church that was totally Caucasian. It was not, besides us that were there, me and my uncle and a couple people that were running revival, there were just Caucasians there, and I'm preaching, and while we're ministering, we're doing ministry like we do it in our church. And I never forget there was an older man that was there, Caucasian man, and it was funny. But he sit there the whole time with his had his hands over his ears like that, and so I'm looking at him and I'm like, man, he in my mind I'm thinking maybe he's a little disrespectful or whatever. But at the end of service, after service was over, he came up. He said, "I really enjoyed you." And this is what he said. He said, "You was a little loud and you was hurting my ears. So I was holding my ears, but I heard everything you was saying." And so it gave me to understand that when we talking about ministry, we have to know how to do ministry in a certain way, and we have to define what ministry is. We can't get locked into tunnel vision of what our definition of ministry is and not do ministry the way it should be, because we just never know how that's working and how ministry is. And so tonight again, and I'm not going to be long with this. So what is your definition of ministry? That's the question tonight. What is your definition of ministry? What do you think when you think about ministry? What is your definition to be able to push the ministry and do the purpose of God, do the work of God? Do you have a clear definition of ministry? What did Jesus say? He says, I commission you to go into what? All the world. And so could that be our commission, ministry, to go into the world? Do we define ministry just in the four walls of the church? And I said again, we've got to take ministry out of the four walls, because there's other people that are doing ministry. There's the ministry of helps. There's other parts of ministries, and their ministry outside the four walls. And now here's a very important one, I believe. We've got to understand that there's ministry outside of not only the four walls, but there's ministry outside of the pulpit. One of the things that I think that hurts us a lot of times is we have geared people to believe that the only ministry that we should focus on and the only ministry we should work on is the ministry of the pulpit. And so when we get into that area of just doing the pulpit and just being in the pulpit, we find ourselves just dealing in the area that is just the pulpit. And so everyone strives to get to the pulpit. Everyone fights to get to the pulpit. Everyone fights to get a seat in the pulpit. Why? For the mere fact that they believe that the pulpit is most important, and that is where we should do the bulk of our ministry. Well, when you really think about it and try to define ministry, most of the time the bulk of our ministry is not going to be done in the pulpit. It's going to be done outside. It's not going to be done in the pulpit. It's going to be done in a different way, in a different manner. It's going to be done. It's going to be done. You're right. Amen. It lends itself over to participation in service, in serving in a way that others can receive. You're correct. And so a lot of times we need to understand that this is an important thing that we need to work on a little bit more. Again, because I said we have put ministry in one place, and that's the pulpit. Everybody, from when you see people coming up now, and allow me to say this, and I'm not trying to be funny, but there's some people probably would do better doing other parts of ministry rather than the pulpit. You can just sort of get the feeling that they do not, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feeling, but let me see, can I put this in a way that it won't hurt you or hurt anybody's feelings. But sometimes you understand that sometimes people, it is a possibility that they do not belong in the pulpit. Even though they're in the pulpit, it's a possibility that they do not belong in the pulpit because that's not their place of ministry. And, we sometimes we try not to hurt people's feelings, but some people, let's just be honest. And I'm not, don't take this wrong, but all of us have had those thoughts, whether you express them or not. You just sort of feel when some people get up, you sort of realize that this is not what they're supposed to be doing. But because we made the pulpit so important and the highlight of ministry, that people strive to get to the pulpit because they feel that if they get to the pulpit, then they'll get recognized for ministry. It's like in our church, honestly, I love our church, but in our church and probably other churches too, the highlight is to get to a certain platform and to get to that certain platform. And if they get on that platform, then they feel important because they made it to that platform. So when you think about it, there's some people that maybe shouldn't be pastoring. Now, I'm not talking about their crowd. So that's not what I'm talking about, whether they got a large church of crowds or not, because that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about some people, they are doing it because they feel I'm not going to be recognized if I'm just an elder. I'm not going to be recognized if I'm just a minister. So in order for me to be recognized, I've got to do something in a greater way. And what is that? I've got to get in the pulpit or start a church so they can give me my recognition. And so we've taken that importance away from ministry and sort of put it in the place that we put people in a position that they start doing stuff that it is possible that they were not called to do. Not saying they weren't called to ministry, but maybe they were not called to that part of ministry. If let's think about it. Now I can hold a tune, I can sing a little bit. My wife and my daughter and they're the singers, and my sisters, they're the singers in the family and all that. But I can hold a tune. I can hold my own when I need to. But now watch this. That's not what I'm called to do. Now, if singing was the only thing that got you, if singing was the only thing that got you recognized, then I may push myself out there to try to sing just so I can get some recognition. Where I could be doing ministry in another area, but because the only way that I can get recognition is to be in that arena or got to have that certain thing, then I get into an area that maybe I shouldn't be. Some people, you may not believe it, but your ministry may be administration. It may not even be behind the pulpit. Your ministry may be in another part of what you're doing. A lot of things you can minister. You can minister outside of church. You can be a caregiver and ministering that way. So there's a lot of things. So when we start talking about ministry, the reason we must define it and get a definition for it and what our definition is, because we don't want to get bogged down and where we're not doing ministry because somebody said that's not ministry. And so we got to do it. That others can see Christ through you. That's a part. We all need that to be able to see Christ in us. And so we've got to, we have been, how can I put this? People get it all upset when you say stuff, but we have actually put ourselves in position that we have probably done more damage to our own selves for ministry than we've done good, because we put the spotlight on certain things, certain phases of ministry, even with titles and positions. Everyone wants a title. And so what happens, and please don't y'all get upset, but I'm gonna say it. So what happens, one title is not good enough. So what we do is we go get another title. Lord, I'm in trouble. We go get another title, and to supersede or to go beyond what someone else's title may be. So we just can't be that, we got to get a title that's greater than that, so we can, when we walk in, that's a more uh, uh, prestigious, recognized title, greater than others. And so that's where we've got these issues, and we've hurt ourselves. We've done this basically to us because we push. And the sad part about this is we've got a younger generation that's coming up, that is, they are adapting and doing the same things we're doing. They're doing the same things that they've seen us doing, what they feel is right, not knowing that you can be just as great. And I know some of you not going to understand this, maybe not even agree with it, but you can be just as great without a title as you are with the title. And that's true. You can be, there's some people I know, they don't have no title, but their works and what they do speak for them, because they are doing work and they're doing ministry. And so we've got to get back. I know, most times you don't hear people talk like this, because most people, they like to get a lot of people to follow them and stuff. And we like to play down people's ministry and play down what people are not doing, and what we're doing is greater than what somebody else is doing. And it may not be so. I go to a chiropractor, and they do my adjustments on my back. I've been going for about 2 or 3 years, and it's a man and his wife that owns it, and they're Christians, people, and people that in there. And I remember one day one lady was talking to me about, giving me a testimony, one of the workers, about some things that happened with her and her family and with her growing up. But during the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, they do a thing called brown bag, and they have you to bring things in, and they pass out things to homeless people and go and help people. And so what happens is they do that, and you could say that's ministry. It's not ministry in the four walls, but they're doing ministry. We're the ones that have put this narrow tunnel vision on what is ministry. And so what has happened is, when people do stuff like this, and that ain't nothing, feeding the hungry, that ain't nothing, and so ministry, most of our ministry, I can say, including mine and anybody else, most of our ministry is locked in to the four walls. We have not even really properly trained people to do ministry outside of the four walls. Ministry, witnessing, telling people about Christ, witnessing, telling people about Jesus. We haven't done any, most of the time we haven't done that, because we're just focusing on the four wall ministry. And watch this, and I'm just about done. Not only are we focusing on the four wall ministry, but we are we got ministry in the four walls, and we're waiting for them to come to us so we can minister to them. We're waiting for them to come to us so we can minister to them. And when it is for us to go out into the highways and the hedges and compel men to come, bring them in, that the Lord's house may be filled, we're waiting for them to come in. We're waiting to do our greatest marketing strategy, and to do our greatest flyer with the most colorful things we can put on there, and the most wonderful words and flares and stuff we can put on there to get people in for our 30-second, a minute promo, a push, or ad. And we want them to come to us. And sometimes when you define ministry, ministry is going to them. It's not always just about us. Sometimes we got to go to them. And so the definition of ministry, I think we must define it. I'm not giving a definition tonight because many of you may have total or totally different definition. And I don't need you to get locked in to my definition of what ministry is, but I need all of us to find out whether we go in the Word or seek God. What is the definition of ministry that you've assigned for me to do? That when we go do ministry, we can do it in a way and do it in a manner that will be a blessing to those that we're doing ministry and how we're handling ministry. And so tonight, the question is, what is your definition of ministry? Those of you that are watching, think about it. Those of you that will watch, think about it. What is your definition of ministry? What is the real thing about ministry? Is it to be highlighted? Is it to be pushed? Is it to be the main star, whatever you want to call it? Is that what we are defining as ministry? Or do you get to the place that you step outside of your comfort zone and do ministry in a way that will impact people's lives, that they will never forget, not only you, but they'll never forget the message of Jesus Christ that was spoken because of the impact of ministry that was made on their lives. I think that's important for us to get. I think that's important for us to do. And we've got to have this discussion a little bit more, because if we don't have this discussion, we may be going down a path that we may have a hard time getting back from. And that is, as we say in many of our churches, doing real ministry. Doing real ministry. I think I posted something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think I said that we are doing ministry uninterrupted. And what I meant by that is we're not looking at others in what they're doing and going just off their blueprint or being in competition with them to do ministry. We're doing ministry the way God told us to do it, and we're doing it uninterrupted, because whenever we're interrupted and do distractions and trying to compete and keep up with each other, let me tell you that competition is not ministry. Trying to keep up with the church down the street, around the corner, is not ministry. No one gets anything from that. No one gets blessed from that. No one gets anything from that when we are competing. Matter of fact, we've stepped out of everything that we're supposed to be doing when we get to competing and going through. And so I say to you, let's go back and let's do, as we say, real ministry. Find out what it is we're supposed to be doing and do it, whether you're witnessing in the street, whether you're in the convalescent homes, whether you're going to minister to the homeless on the street, whether you are witnessing when you go to the barbershop, whether you're witnessing at the store, whether you're doing ministry in the pulpit, out of the pulpit, whether you're doing ministry just by going handing out tracts or whatever you're doing, do it, and do it to the glory of God. Ask God to anoint it, that he will be glorified, that folks' life will be changed and they'll be saved. And let's do ministry without fighting each other. Let's do ministry without beating one another up and saying, well, because you didn't do it the way I do it, you're not doing it the way I'm doing it, that you're not doing it properly or you're not doing it right. Because again, diversity is right. Everyone comes to see things a different way. You'll be surprised that everybody does not do things. And I'm going to say this, and let me close with this. Thank you, Evangelist. She's in Chicago. You got to go. Thank you for helping me tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Blessings to you. Let me say this, and I'm closing. About 2 years ago, I was watching, maybe 3 now, I was watching a telecast on a local station here. It was a church service, and I was watching it, and this was one of the local churches in the city, a big church downtown. I'd never been to it. I was just watching the service, and the Lord drew my attention to the service. I want you to watch this. I said, okay. So I began to watch it, And they had when the choir got up to sing, they had on robes, and they had hymnals. They were singing. They had a pipe organ. The lady was playing the pipe organ. Those of you know what pipe organs is, the organ with those pipes. And so they were singing. I forgot what song they sung. And then when the pastor got up, he says, we're going to pray. And he prayed a prayer. And he said, I'm going to teach today. And then he starts saying, he said, well, this is July. And since January, we've had over 100 people to join the church and give their lives to Christ. And we ministered to them. And he started talking. So I stopped. And I think the Lord wanted me to hear that. And the Lord began to talk to me. He said, now I want you to see something. And he said, I want you to see the difference in what's going on here so you won't get caught up in not understanding different parts and phases and different ways of ministry, that every way is not the same way. And I don't down what we do because I'm going to do it. But he wanted me to see that here's a church, they have a pipe organ, they've got a choir with robes on singing from hymnals, and no drums. I didn't see no drums anywhere. They didn't do anything. But he said 100 people has joined the ministry and got saved. So that works for them. We can't say that they're not doing ministry because they're not on the altar clapping like we do. And that's my point. We got to do ministry and understand that ministry is whatever way God has given you to do it. But let's not kill each other when our main goal and objective is to get people saved, blessed, and delivered. That's what our goal is. That's the purpose. And to make disciples. That's what our goals are. We're not here to do anything else but that. We're not here to draw people to ourselves and build kingdoms for ourselves and be great that when we walk in, everyone bow to us. That's not what this is supposed to be about. It's really not. It's supposed to be something different, but we made it what we made it. So it is what it is. But I say to you, let's get a definition of ministry. Let's find out what ministry really is, and let's define it. And let's go back to doing ministry the way I believe God has commissioned us to do. Well, I pray and trust that you were blessed. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on this Wednesday night. Every Wednesday night, we're here talking ministry and with Pastor Dennis Martin. I thank you so much for being a part. Some of you have been hanging out with me for about almost 3-4 years now that we've been doing. We started off with the ministry of the evangelist, and then we changed it over to Let's Talk Ministry with Pastor Dennis Martin. Thank you so much for being a part. Listen, I want to invite you to something. Let me post it here. I want you to be a part. We just had a conference called Breaking the Silence. One-day conference we had. It was February the 8th, and the Lord spoke to me and said, I don't want you to let that be a one-time event. So we're going to have a Breaking the Silence once a month conference call that will take place, and every first Monday at 9 p.m., every first Monday at 9 p.m., we're going to have this conference call. The first one this time will be Monday the 9th, Monday, March 9th at 9 p.m., and the number is 253-993-3554. You don't need a code to get in. You don't need to dial a code. Just dial that number. We're going to be talking. We're going to be having others that will be online. We're going to be talking about some of the things we talked about during the conference. But this is a call that we're going to be talking about breaking the silence. I'm in ministry, but I'm suffering. We're going to be talking to pastors and those that are in ministry, those that may be whatever phase of ministry you're in. We want to talk to you, and I know it's going to bless you. So make sure you make note that the first Breaking the Silence conference call will be Monday, March 9th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then every first Monday at 9 p.m., we're going to have that call. And the number again is 253-993-3554. Now, those of you that want to get text notifications to make sure that when we getting ready to go on the call, you'll get notifications. You can text the word, the text BTS 2020 QC. That's BTS 2020 QC Text it to the number 833-463-5980. That number again is 833-463-5980. Just text BTS 2020 QC. It'll give us your name. Well, not your name, but your number. And when we go on the first conference call, March the 9th, we will send out a notification to you, and you'll be able to get the notification. And the number again is 253-993-3554. I want you to definitely be a part of that. Help me spread it, talk about it, share it with somebody. I know it's going to bless those that will be a part of it on March 9th. That's the second Monday. And then after that, every first Monday, we'll have that conference call. And I would love for you to be a part. And so many have reached out to me since the conference, and I know it'll bless you. So please make sure you do so and be a part of that. Well, the Lord bless you tonight, and the Lord keep you. Thank you once again for joining me. I appreciate each and every one of you for being a part tonight as we've talked about. And now those of you, if you're coming in, you can always go back and look at the replay. Let's look at defining ministry. What is your definition of ministry? Hey, Pastor McRae, amen. You blessed us. This is one of our presenters doing the conference, and he blessed us talking about drug addiction. And I'm going to get him to come on the call when we do a conference call, one of those calls, and just talk about and deal with those things. I know that sometimes we don't like to deal with them, but we have to help each other because we got a lot of people that are suffering, and we need to help them. And a lot of people in ministry, and we need to turn this conversation around, and we need to deal with some things. And so this is the purpose that we're doing this, to help each other and to share with each other and to bring each other to a place that we all can be better. And God's working on all of us, and all of us can be better. The Lord bless you, and the Lord keep you. Thank you once again for being with me tonight. And we'll be back again next week with Let's Talk Ministry with Pastor Dennis Martin. The Lord bless you. And remember these words, that your best days are ahead of you and not behind. May God bless you, and may all God's best be yours.